Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 17 of the Content Casuals. I am one of your hosts, Josh, joined as always by my partner in crime, Nathan, and this week we have an absolute bevy of topics to sift through, beginning with our hotly anticipated review of Godzilla vs. Kong. But before we start talking your ears off, I want to make it clear that this discussion, much like our previous ones, will be spoiler-filled. Unlike them, however, this analysis will be much shorter due to the sheer amount of content this week's podcast entails. So, strap yourselves in, because we've got our thoughts on the first 3 episodes of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier and some of this year's biggest movie trailers also coming your way. As always, if you enjoy chats such as these, then you can check out the Content Casuals website as well as our socials. If listening on YouTube, then links will be provided below. Otherwise, you can visit us at thecontentcasuals.wordpress.com. Anyway, without further delay, let's get reviewing. Now, Nathan, you weren't able to see Godzilla vs. Kong due to unforeseen complications, but like myself, you had some expectations going into the movie. So, despite the fact that you didn't see it, I wanted to get your thoughts on the previous monster movies, if you've seen them, and whether or not you were excited for this film.
Hello. Yeah. I've seen the first Godzilla and I've seen Kong, and I don't know. I thought the first Godzilla movie was pretty boring. I don't actually remember it, so I didn't watch the second one. And Kong I thought was okay, but I prefer the Peter Jackson one. Um, Godzilla vs Kong. I don't know. I wasn't too keen on it because I know it's just gonna. I'm assuming it's just people talking for like most of the movie, and then they fight for like 10 minutes, and that's it. And then they probably fight some other bigger thing for 5 minutes, and then it's like, yay, they saved the day. That's what I think about that movie that I haven't seen.
Well, you're pretty much right on the money. There are some positives about the film. I will say that the special effects look great, but you can't really expect any less from a blockbuster nowadays. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to make a movie that has bad special effects. I mean, sure, there's going to be certain shots that'll look bad, but for the most part, this was a pretty good looking movie.
I was assuming that the special effects would be top notch. I mean, it looked like it, but is it really worth it to watch the rest of the movie?
Well, I'm going to tell you. Mate. So the fights were also really good. And I enjoyed a lot of the choreography. Some moments, like there was a particular scene where Godzilla and Kong are fighting in, I think it's Hong Kong? Oh, yeah, I think it's Hong Kong, and Godzilla's like crawling on all fours after Kong, almost like a crocodile, like biting at his feet, and this kind of tension there. And you have moments like that where they're doing things that are actually rather inventive, and I was surprised by the outcome of a lot of the fights as well. There's also a kind of a downside to it, though, and that is that when the unforeseen antagonist, I guess you could say, monster, or in this case mech, that they have to team up against at the end of the movie that you correctly hypothesized, Mechagodzilla, he just ends up being really quick, like too fast, to the point where he's just a big CGI robot. It almost turns into Power Rangers, like it pulls you out of the movie. Like recently I watched a VFX artists react on YouTube by the Corridor Crew, and they brought up this really interesting fact about how when you just have countless amounts of action, especially CG action, like you might find in a Man of Steel, it pulls you out of the movie because you don't have moments to pause. Like there's no time to kind of sit and gestate and take in that tension and before the next beat kind of happens in a fight or any kind of dance for that matter. And in this case, once Mechagodzilla rocked up, he was just a big, as I said, Power Rangers type robot that the 2 other monsters had to fight, and that kind of pulls you straight out of the film. Besides that, I mean, the only other positive I can really give the movie is that there's this kind of cute relationship between Kong and I'm sorry for forgetting her name, but the only characteristic I remember about her was the fact that she was deaf. And they have this cute little relationship, as I said, where they communicate with sign language, and it's really emotional because she's like the last survivor of his island. I think it's Skull Island, yeah. And there's something there, and it's nice, and it kind of adds a little bit of levity to the movie, but again, these are kind of the only three positives I really can give the film, because there's just this massive list of negatives, which is surprising because, again, this is sort of the same thing that happened to us with the Snyder cut of Justice League, where all of these critics were giving it mostly positive reviews, and then we kind of looked on it with a bit more pessimism. And I think the same thing happened here, at least with me. A lot of people are saying that this is kind of dumb fun, and they're just giving it passes like you would a kids movie, where you're like, oh, it's made for kids and therefore we're just going to forgive it. But as you just said, with your impressions just based on the trailer, this is mostly just people talking the entire time, and then whenever there is an action scene, yeah, it looks really good, but it just goes straight back to meaningless dialogue with characters you do not care about. And it all builds to what is probably one of the worst paced movies I think I've watched. It reminded me quite a lot of The Rise of Skywalker, and you know how much I do not like that movie. And the fact that that movie never stops to smell the roses, as it were. Like, it just keeps moving. There's no time to say, hey, why are we doing this? Or what's the point of this? Or why are we seeing this? It's just constant movement. And you might think, oh, well, then it's kind of like a roller coaster. But no, you're just confused, and you're trying to figure out how there's any continuity between this movie and the previous ones. Because the movie just does this nosedive into complete science fiction. Again, it would be like if you were watching Avengers, and instead of Infinity War, which kind of was built up to, you just get this completely different film that feels almost jarring. And that's kind of what happened here, which is frustrating. And I know Millie Bobby Brown makes a return from the second Godzilla film, King of the Monsters. And honestly, as far as I'm concerned, I wonder if Stranger Things kind of blew her into stardom, and then it was like, oh, and she's not that great in anything else. Because in this movie, she's just really like cookie cutter performance, been there, done that. And she has this subplot with a Kiwi actor named Julian Dennison, who was in Deadpool 2 and Hunt for the Wilder People, and another actor by the name of Brian Tyree Henry. And it almost feels like, once again, I'm watching another Star Wars movie. It's The Last Jedi, and it's the Rose Finn subplot, and every time it cuts to these characters, the movie just grinds to a halt. And at the very end, you wonder why we kept seeing them at all, because the entire storyline has nothing to do with the overall plot. Like, there's this big thing going on with Kong, right? Because he feels more like the protagonist of the movie. Surprise, surprise. Godzilla's like apparently the antagonist, which I don't really get, seeing as how he's had two movies, but I guess you have to make that balance somewhere. And yeah, it just keeps cutting back to these three characters, and it just feels like the most cringy, vomit-inducing comedy you could ever see, where it's just like, please stop, I can't bear this anymore. And it leads into some of the most absurd science fiction stuff. Like, they introduce this theory called the Hollow Earth theory, and it's just really stupid. And I say stupid because it literally is about the fact that the Earth has this prehistoric civilization living underneath it, or almost like a prehistoric world, I should say, where if you go close to the Earth's core, then there's this part of the world where gravity is like inverted. And I know that might sound cool, but when you're watching a movie that for the most part has been, you know, fairly grounded, and all of a sudden it's just like, oh, by the way, there's this, we have to go into these ships and then travel into the center of the Earth, and then we'll find this world underneath where everything's upside down, and we're going to find out that there used to be Godzilla and Kong sort of species fighting each other for like a millennia, and you're just kind of like, huh? What?
That sounds really stupid.
Yeah, it just rips, again, it just pulls you out of the movie, these massive exposition dumps, and they're throughout the film, right? Like, and it just makes you go, why did you have to overcomplicate something that could have just been so simple? And that's what I don't get, because as much as the first Godzilla movie, the one from 2014, is pretty boring, it's fairly simple, right? It's just like, here's Godzilla, he woke up because of some nuclear tests. Here are some other titans, as they call them, which also woke up because of some nuclear testing. And in this movie, it's like, oh, nah, we got to jump into the middle of the planet. And then we have to have Godzilla shoot some of his atomic breath, I think it's called, into the ground. He shoots a hole into the earth, and then Kong jumps into that hole from the center of the earth and then goes all the way up to Hong Kong. Like he climbs to Hong Kong through this hole.
What?
It's just like, huh? What? It just does.
Wait, is that like that joke? You dig a hole to China?
I don't know. It probably is. All I know is it just, again, it rips you out of the movie. And people seem to love it because everyone's giving it rave reviews, but I can't help but sit here and be like, why? What was the purpose of all of this? Like, if you want to have these two monsters fight, then just stick to that, the fights, and have a grounded story. You don't have to go bananas with it. You don't have to have all this unnecessary human stuff. And we've talked about this with like Sonic the Hedgehog, where we saw how there was just, oh, we have to inject more people into it. Like I get in this case you don't have two humanoid characters that can talk, right? Like there's a big gorilla and it's a giant lizard. So surely you need human characters, but you just need one group of humans. You don't need two groups with, and one of them is this really stupid subplot. Like you just need one. Don't waddle around. Again, if you were to watch The Last Jedi and it was just Rey and Kylo, it would have just been a much more enjoyable movie. But no, it had to keep cutting to Rose and Finn, and that's exactly what happens in this film.
Well, I mean, a movie that would have just been Kong and Godzilla. That actually sounds like interesting. Like to try that without any annoying humans talking. Maybe it would have been better. I don't know. Maybe they should try and do something like that and see if it works instead of just always throwing humans in.
Well, it's like this, right? Like I said with my positives, there's a relationship between Kong and this little girl because she's deaf, she uses sign language to communicate with him, and she is the last of the inhabitants on Skull Island because of this storm that came through and like wiped out the people who lived there. And there are all these story elements where I go, okay, well, why didn't, instead of there being this storm, you just had Godzilla arrive at the island and then he inadvertently wipes out this village and this girl is left alone, right? And then it's almost like Kong takes sympathy upon her and or has sympathy upon her and he basically wants to help her, right? Like there are these little things where you're like, if you had just changed it a little bit, you could have made the movie at least a bit more enjoyable or make at least a bit more sense, or it just could have had a little bit more of something that, wasn't so stupid. But I digress because honestly, this movie makes so many mistakes. Again, this is a micro review, so if you really want to check it out, by all means, guys, go right ahead. But at least from my experience, this is another one of those films, much like Justice League, where so much could have been cut out. And in this case, you could literally just go online, onto YouTube, for example, and just watch these fights. Just watch Godzilla fight Kong, right? And then you're done. You don't need the rest of it, because it's literally just filler. That's what the movie is. It's just filler. And as a result, I'm giving the movie a 3 out of 10. It's not worth your time. It's not even worth 2 hours. My girlfriend got up
Ouch.
partway through the movie and went and bought some ice creams and came back because she was so bored. And I was just sitting there going, is anything going to happen? Like, is something going to happen? What's going on?
Yeah, maybe I'm being too crazy by saying like no human characters or like, but I think what I mean is like, why do you need the side plots? Why can't you just have a main plot for a movie like that? That's an action movie essentially. Then why can't you just have focus on the characters that are doing the action? I feel like, why do they always feel the need to add these pointless storylines? Like you said in The Last Jedi, like it's just a complete waste of time.
Well, I think part of it is because they feel as though they can build upon the universe, probably, or that they can add a little bit of comedic levity. I know in Last Jedi's case, I think that was just an example of, we want to teach the audience a lesson and we want to make Star Wars a little bit more profound. And then everyone's complaint was like, okay, we go to watch Star Wars, like any movie, to escape from the humdrum nature of the real world. And we don't want to see a life lesson while we watch a movie about people with laser swords fighting each other, right? And in this case, it's more a matter of, all I want to see is two giant monsters beat the hell out of each other, and I don't need to see these three characters go off on this, comedic or supposedly comedic romp around the world just for the sake of it. Like, it doesn't make any sense and it shouldn't be there. And
I mean, Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, did Last Jedi really teach a lesson, or did it just say animal cruelty is bad and war is bad? I feel like people already knew that,
Yeah, I think that they pretty much
and
just.
slavery is bad.
I think they
Did you
pretty
know
much
that?
screwed the pooch on that one, but that's a completely different story. Anyway,
Um,
that's my thoughts on Godzilla versus Kong. But the second topic, which we can at least both talk about because we are watching it at the moment, is the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. At least the first 3 episodes of it. So I want to get your take on it so far because even though we didn't get to chat about it, I think both of us were pretty big fans of WandaVision up until the last episode, which got a little bit choppy. Um, so I don't know what did you think so far of Disney Plus's latest Marvel show?
yeah, I mean, I totally agree with what you just said with WandaVision. That's definitely how I felt. So you're right about that. Yeah, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I thought, similar to WandaVision, had a pretty slow start. Um, the first episode was kind of boring. I think it was maybe even a mistake not to have Falcon and Winter Soldier like meet up in the first episode, especially when you only have 6 episodes. It feels like a bit of a waste of time. And like, I really don't care about his family and their family boat. I just was really bored of that part. Um, but I thought the second episode really picked up. I'm like, okay, this is why I'm here, and it, like, it's finally delivering what the show promised to be, and what they're doing with like Captain America and stuff. Like, it's fun. I enjoy it. Um, yeah, and I did like the third episode. Maybe just as much as the second one. I don't know, maybe more or less. I'm not too sure, but I like what they did with Zemo. I mean, the only problem is he doesn't feel anything like his original character,
No, of
but they made
course
him
not.
a lot more fun though, and I like the new Zemo, so I'm not complaining. And Sharon Carter is that her name?
Yeah,
Yeah. She was really cool too. I'm saying she was kind of like John Wick, the way she was killing all those guys. So that was pretty
oh,
cool.
I didn't
Yeah.
think about that.
And so yeah, I'm enjoying the show. It's good.
Yeah, I'm kind of mixed on it at the moment. I agree with you about the first episode. It definitely felt like a prologue. Like it was good to see a bit of character building for Falcon because you really don't have any of that in the movies. And I like this whole subplot that they're using with Bucky about him trying to atone for past grievances. I like that. But then when the second episode arrived, it felt like the first episode. Like it was like this should have been the first episode. Obviously, it kind of wouldn't have worked because you needed to set up the Falcon handing over the shield to the US government and John Walker becoming Captain America. And I actually really liked the beginning of episode 2 with him kind of preparing himself mentally to go out and talk in front of like thousands of people. I thought that was really fun and interesting and a great way to kind of connect you as the viewer with this character you have literally no knowledge of, especially when he's assumed this role that is so famously associated with Steve Rogers. And now that he's gone, you want it to be the Falcon, but you get this random insert instead. So that was good. The only problem I had was that it seems as though after that, the show kind of loses its momentum, and I think a lot of that comes down to it's just. And I say momentum because I mean that the show's either moving too quickly, like it doesn't stay in a place long enough, or in the case of John Walker, it decides, okay, we're going to give you this bit of character development, and then he kind of becomes a prick really quickly, and it didn't really correlate with the first impression of him, you know? Um, and then I just started to question everything because the plot itself didn't really grab me, and it hasn't really grabbed me at all. I'm kind of sitting here going, okay, I'm waiting for the mic to drop. I'm waiting for something big to happen. And there are little things they're alluding to, and I know we're going to get into that. And this is just meant to be my first sort of discussion about the show. It just feels as though it's not really grabbing my interest like WandaVision did. I don't know how you feel about it in terms of that, because I know we're going to make comparisons anyway, but I don't know how you feel.
Yeah, I do agree. I do feel like One Division was more interesting as a show because it was such like a unique concept, and this. I mean, even from the trailers, I was like, okay, this is just generic Marvel action, and I feel like that's still what it is. And there's not not many episodes, and if that's meant to be like the mid season, then like nothing really like there's no like huge like cliffhanger or anything at the end. It's just the same plot. It's like, oh, the super soldier serums out there, and they need to get it. Well, they need to stop them, I guess,
Yeah, because it's like
from making more. Yeah,
Quicksilver showed up midway through WandaVision, and I feel like, well, at least it was supposed to be Quicksilver, presumably. So at least that gripped us. You know what I mean? It was like, oh, whoa, hang on a minute, what's going on? But I felt like end of episode 3 in Falcon and Winter Soldier, I was just kind of like, all right, cool. Let's just wait till
yeah,
next
it
week's
was just
episode.
kind of more of the second episode, I think, really.
Yeah, and I know, as I said before, they've alluded to certain things. Like they've said there's a guy named, or a person named the Power Broker, and I feel like the reason why they're not saying what that person's name is because it's going to be like some big reveal or something. As I'm sure there's still going to be a lot of reveals to come, but it just makes me again really confused because I feel as though had they played more into the Winter Soldier vibe of the MCU and involved a little bit more conspiracy theory type stuff, um, and had they had these two characters almost on the run, like maybe instead of Falcon giving Cap's shield to the US government actually took it from him. Um, then they got imprisoned or something, and then Zemo kind of broke them out, and they didn't have to do the whole breaking Zemo out kind of thing. They needed his help. I feel like it would have been a little bit more fun to have had those characters on the run from the government or from somebody in particular. Maybe it was what's his name, like General Ross or Senator Ross, from Incredible Hulk, and then he was in Civil War and Infinity War. Like maybe somebody like that. Because at this stage, it just feels like, okay, we're going from location to location to location to location. And it's also really quick in that respect. Like you just get these 50-minute episodes and you are literally jumping across the world to like these two different plots effectively, one with the protagonists and one with the antagonists. And the antagonists at the moment aren't really doing it for me, mainly because I think there have been attempts to humanize them, and I'm sure it's going to be something about how they're not really the bad guys, and this person's actually the bad
Yeah,
guy. But
I was about to say, there's not really a villain, which yeah, I only just realized that there's no like proper villain in the show except for yeah, I suppose was it the Power Broker or whatever, but we haven't even met him yet.
yeah, and then John Walker isn't as much as an antagonist as he is just kind of an obstacle. He's just some guy in the way.
He's just yeah, he's like an I don't know. Yeah, he's not really a hero or villain. He's just kind of playing a hero, I suppose, for now.
Yeah, so it's just kind of jarring for me because the mystery surrounding WandaVision was just so good. Like at the end of every episode, you were like, I gotta see what next week's episode is. Like it
Yeah.
was those cliffhanger episodes that I love so much. Especially when you're watching an episodic show that only releases on a weekly basis, right? Because it keeps you coming back for more. Mandalorian did the same thing, where it was like, right, you have an episode, you come back next week, and you're so amped to see what happens next. But I feel like with this show, episode 2 finished, and I was like, all right, I'll just keep on waiting. And then episode 3 finished, and I was like, all right, I guess I'll just jump back on here a week from now and watch the next episode. It was more like I was obligated to watch it, like I was watching a bad season of The Walking Dead or something, where I'm already in this story. I may as well just keep going. And that's how I feel like my
Yeah,
experiences with
yeah,
the show so
yeah.
far.
You are right because yeah, there's definitely not that anticipation, especially like yeah with Mandalorian and actually WandaVision. I even messaged you about it saying that the week to week like anticipation. I had like I was more anticipated for that than I was Mandalorian, which is crazy because I love Star Wars probably more than I do Marvel, but WandaVision just had this really like good good thing going of like this mystery, what's going to happen next, and I really enjoyed waiting each week. But yeah, Falcon's like, oh, it's Friday, the next episode's out, I guess.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. I think it's all got to do with the plot of the entire show. I think that the fact that these characters are going after something, in this case the super soldier serum, instead of being hunted, I think it just reduces the tension and the conflict, and you don't have that stress that you might have watching something where these characters would otherwise be pursued by the government or some sort of opposing force. And I think that if they used Ross and like he was sending these super powered goons after them for, X reason, I think it would have been a lot more interesting. But again, I think it could be just a simple matter of, if they're being sent to go do this, then why aren't all these other Avengers popping up and helping them? Because there's always that excuse of there's these big world-ending events, or things that change a nation, but the Avengers themselves as a whole are never really involved. It's always these certain members. But that's just something you're always going to run into with superhero content. Like, you can't do anything about it. I just feel as though it would have at least been a little bit more interesting if they were actually being pursued rather than, going after something that really has no bearing or interest, at least for me at the moment. That's all. It just doesn't really do it for me at the moment. But again, I'll watch next week's and the week after, and I'll watch till the very end. And then who knows, in 3 weeks' time or whenever we get to review the second half, my opinion on the whole thing could have changed. It's just at the moment, I don't have that hankering to keep going. So I'm more like, all right, I'm being pulled along. And then eventually it'll finish. I'll be like, all right, that was all right. I feel like that's just going to be the reaction at the end of the day, which kind of bums me out because I really wanted a show that made me actually love Falcon and Bucky more, because I like Falcon. It's just that he never really got his time in the sun. And same thing goes for Bucky, because he was so cool in Winter Soldier. And as I said, I love the stuff with his past and how they've incorporated that into the show. But again, I say incorporated, but it kind of featured really heavily in the first episode, and there was like sprinkles of it in this latest one in episode 3. And that was it. And I think had they done something, again, as I said before, whether it had to do with Ross or whether or not maybe his past was catching up with him, I think it just could have been a really cool idea. But I don't know, do you have any other thoughts on the show before we move on to our third topic?
Not really. I'm hoping that it picks up a bit more in the last half of the show. I feel like they almost know that this one isn't as good. That's why it's in the middle between WandaVision
Yeah.
and Loki. They're like, this is the one that's not unique, so we're just gonna slap it in here
Yeah.
just to tell the story that needs to be told.
Well,
It's almost like, I don't know. It almost feels like they don't care. Like they just have this story they need to tell, so they're just telling it to fill in the gap. That's what it feels like to me, anyway.
I think it's because it's like you said, with WandaVision at the end of that show, despite how the finale kind of threw a lot at you, it ended up feeling like, okay, this story is going to have a greater impact on the MCU going forward, right? And at the moment I'm watching this show and I'm kind of like, I don't know if I'm getting those vibes. I don't know if that's what's going to happen at the end of this. And I think that's a good point to jump off of into our third topic, because there are some trailers in our trailer roundup for this week that give us a little bit more of an insight into where the MCU is going. But before we talk about them, we do have one DC trailer, or two more precisely, that did premiere over the last few weeks, and that is for the Suicide Squad. Now, I know you've got some thoughts on this, so again, I'll throw it to you first. What did you think of the 2 Suicide Squad trailers?
Well, I mean, we're probably not the best people to ask because I feel like we're pretty negative on DC.
No, who says we are?
But I will say that I'm pretty keen for this. Actually, this looks like a lot of fun. I mean, I'm glad that it's James Gunn, so that's got me pretty psyched. I love Guardians. And this is just a more violent and, I guess, I don't know, grotesque version of that. Yeah, so I'm actually pretty keen to see it. Again, the CGI kind of looks a bit dodgy. Classic DC, can't get that right still.
Yeah, I don't know if they're ever going to get that right.
There were a few kind of cringe jokes in the trailer. I was like, oh, okay,
Yeah,
I
most
feel
of
like we
them,
can't avoid that at
funnily
this point.
enough, most of them were kind of Harley Quinn ones, though, for some reason. But anyway, go on.
I mean, and John Cena isn't really an actor, but anyways.
Oh, really? I found his stuff to actually be really funny. I was surprised by the John Cena stuff, because I sort of thought, I know his character by the looks of things is meant to be like your, I guess, Captain America type patriotic dude, and he just kind of
He
plays into that
kind
role.
of
You know what I mean? Like
he kind of feels like Drax from Guardians.
a little bit. I just got more of a
Because
vibe that
when
he
they say the
was
thing about the penises on the
on the
beach or whatever, he's
beach.
like,
Yeah,
if I had to eat every penis on this beach, I would, or something. And that kind of reminded me of something that Drax would say, especially the way he said it.
yeah, true. I mean, I can see what you're saying. For me, it was just a
Yeah.
matter of I liked the casting of John Cena because he feels like the kind of person that fills that quota of a dick. Like he's like a douchebag,
Yeah.
and I feel like
Okay. Yeah.
that's what they're going for with him in this film, and I liked that. I was like, okay, yeah, I can see what you're going for, and it'll be nice to see him, I guess, in a movie where he's actually playing a role maybe suited to him. I don't know if that's mean, but it
Yeah.
seems like
What?
it
A
kind of
dickhead
works.
idiot. Okay. Great. Thanks, man.
But
I'm
nah,
sure the John Cena fans are going to
yeah,
appreciate
it's
that
alright. But
that remark.
but like you said though, the movie does look like a lot of fun, and I've been harsh.
I
I
mean, you
think
can't even. The problem is you can't even see him. That's the problem.
what John's. All right. Anyway, moving on from the John Cena references. Yes, I found that the trailer did make the movie seem like a lot of fun. Uh, and I've
I'm
been
excited for the dumb stuff, like the giant rat looking thing and polka dot man. Like that stuff's gonna be funny.
yeah, and I liked the
Yeah.
chick who can like use rats. Was her name the Rat Catcher? I think her name is. I remember the like first trailer where it had all the names for all of them. But yeah, it does look like there's a lot of fun people or characters in the movie, and that's what makes me excited because, like we talked about with Justice League, there was just so little color in that movie. And when I mean color, I don't just mean like visually, I mean that the characters themselves were just very like, I'm depressed or I'm
Yeah,
super
it doesn't have
serious.
life.
There's no like, hey, let's have some fun here. And this is exactly what I think we've been talking about when it comes to DC. Like, we want to see the silly, stupid characters. Like, I want to see Plastic Man. And I
Yeah,
want to see Captain Stars and Stripes. Like, I want to see the weirdest stuff DC's got to offer. And to me, this is a
but we're
first
getting
step
it. Yeah,
into that direction. And I know we got it
yeah,
with
for
Lego
sure.
Batman movie. Like we got some of it with Lego Batman movie, like Condiment King and stuff like that. Um, but I'd like to see more. I just want to see go crazy because at the moment with all the superhero movies we do have, you know, I think if you can find a way to stand out, um, then why not go for it? You know. But yeah, I think it looks like a lot of fun. And maybe the story won't be great, and maybe there could be that typical James Gunn thing of there's too much comedy and not enough seriousness. But who knows? Maybe he learned from Guardians Volume 2, where the movie kind of sacrificed a little bit of the drama for just jokes. But again, that just remains to be seen.
Yeah, I'm wondering how much of how quickly a majority of the cast is gonna die. That's what I'm intrigued to see, and who's gonna be left for the actual story.
Yeah, because you do see more characters than others in the trailer. Like they do show
Hmm.
you a few
I was
others.
like, where's Captain Boomerang in the trailer? He's just there walking. Like, does he die? Yeah.
Oh, I think in the second trailer, you just see a clip of him just throwing the boomerang, and I think that they could be saving it. I don't know, but again, you're right. Like, who knows how many people might bite the bullet? So, and I'm guessing there are going to be a lot of characters who die because I think in the original movie, which has no bearing on this one, to my knowledge, we did lose a few people. So I think the same thing's probably going to happen here.
I think only the one guy. Oh, from the bomb. I think only the one guy died from the actual bomb in their head.
Oh yeah, yeah, I think so. Yeah, and
I'm kind
then
of hoping a few people get blown up. That'd be pretty funny.
yeah, I
Have
think
fun
they'll
with
probably
that.
play it for comedic effect or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, apart from the Suicide Squad, the next trailer on our list is Black Widow. Now Black Widow is something or was something I wasn't always that keen on. I think the thing,
I think delaying the release has hurt it more. I reckon,
yeah,
or actually maybe the opposite. Because see, I do think it's hurt it because now it's so long after Endgame. But I also think because a Marvel movie hasn't been in theaters for so long, people are just going to be excited to go and watch a Marvel film, no matter what it is. So maybe the sales might be better than it would have been.
Hmm,
at initial release.
maybe it'll probably end up being a bit of both. I think like it'll definitely get hurt. There's no denying that this movie's going to suffer in some sort of way from COVID and the impact that it's had, like you said, on the movie. There's no way it's not going to be able to walk away scot free, right? Because they did do so much marketing before the film came out, and it's going to lose more marketing or money to marketing, sorry, because of all the delays and change in dates and so on and so forth. Um, but in terms of what I saw on screen when I watched the trailer, this one was arguably the best trailer this film has had so far. Because it gave us a little bit of backstory into Natasha Romanoff's character, and I actually liked that. And so far, the action looks really good. I was initially excited for Taskmaster. I'm kind of sitting on the fence now because at the moment I don't really care. I think it'll just be nice to go and watch a superhero movie in the cinemas that will at least be guaranteed to be good, right? Because I think from Marvel we can always expect at least a good movie. And I know that may come across a little bit like, oh, he's a fanboy because he knows it's always going to be good. I'm like,
Yeah, I
well,
was gonna say I think some people would disagree with you, since especially Age of Ultron and Captain Marvel, which were both movies we don't mind. We definitely don't hate them like some people do.
no. Well, like I said to you though, when I say good, I don't mean an 8 out of 10 because to me an 8 out of 10 is like
No,
a
but
great.
people hate Captain Marvel.
Right.
Don't you
For
know?
me though, Captain
Yeah.
Marvel when we reviewed it got a 7, and a 7 to me is very good. Like it's a very good movie. Am I ever going to watch Captain Marvel ever again? No. Right? I'm not going to. Will I watch Age of Ultron that many times? Probably not. I think I've seen it maybe like a couple of times, right? Because to me, Age of Ultron again is like a 6 or a 7. It's a good movie, but that's it. And to me, the same might be said for Black Widow. I don't know. All I'm saying is that when these movies are at their worst, they're usually mediocre to good, right? They're never bad. At least there has not been a outright bad movie. You can say what you will about the Incredible Hulk and Thor: The Dark World and so on and so forth, maybe even Iron Man 2. But again, I don't necessarily find those to be downright awful films. Like they're just okay. And for me, this looked good. I thought the action looked good, like I said. I thought the backstory was interesting. And, some Russian people singing the Avengers theme is going to get me hype. And that's what happened in the trailer. So I was interested. I don't know about you and your interest in Black Widow. But I don't know. This looks good.
Uh, Black Widow is probably my least favorite Marvel
I think
character.
she's everyone's least favorite Marvel character, besides Hawkeye.
I don't think she needs her own movie. Um, yeah, I'm obviously gonna go see it
I think both of us are
because
going
it's
to go see it,
Marvel.
yeah.
But yeah, I'm hoping it surprises me. But I don't know.
Again,
I'm not too confident.
this feels like it should have been like a Phase 2 movie or maybe even a Phase 3 movie, but to put it in Phase 4 of the MCU as like the first major film of the next era of Marvel, it's a little weird.
Yeah, what's with that? And it's like it's a prequel as well. Like, is this implying they're gonna bring back the character somehow, or is this a farewell and just to give Scarlett Johansson like a worthwhile performance before the end of her Marvel
Well, you
career?
bring up an interesting point. I don't think this is the end of the Black Widow persona, but I think it's the end of Natasha Romanoff. Does that make sense? I think
Yeah, so what it's gonna be like passed down. And they're gonna like
exactly.
set someone
Yeah,
up in
yeah.
a movie.
I think
Okay.
they've got an actress in mind who's appearing in the film, and she's going to take over the mantle of Black Widow.
Yeah, I
Um,
could see that.
and I'm fine with that. Like, that would make sense, and it wouldn't be completely unreasonable. You know what I mean? I know some people are
I
like,
mean, I don't think you need a Black Widow, but okay.
no, but I mean, as in, like, it's not going to bother me. I'm not going to be like, oh my god, you can't do that. Because I know there was, like, people when Endgame finished who were like, you can't have another person be Captain America. Steve Rogers was Captain America. I'm not going to watch it anymore. Like, like, what, who cares? Plenty of people have been Captain America, and I'm sure plenty of women have been Black Widow in the comics. So it's not going to make a difference to
I
me.
just think, well, I think a lot of people just kind of going to drop off the MCU after Endgame just because it was like, the big event that people waited years for, and it feels like a nice like end to the whole thing. So, I mean, that's fair enough, but obviously, you still got millions of people who are going to keep on going.
Well, that's why I think it was so hard for people to get into WandaVision. Like, I remember checking Facebook and seeing all these people saying, "Oh, I watched the first 5 minutes and I was bored," or "I
Yeah.
watched the first episode and I couldn't stand it." And it's like, well, obviously, everything that's going to come out after Endgame is not going to be on this massive intergalactic level, right? It's not going to be this huge threat. Um, though I do believe at the end of WandaVision, they were setting up this huge, multiverse. And we're going to start seeing that take shape. And that interests me, right? But Marvel aren't going to just come straight out of the gate with stuff like that. Like, and usually at the beginning of their phases, they need to start slow and then ramp things up. And since there's this almost been this like hard reset, and you don't have Tony Stark anymore, you don't have Steve Rogers anymore, we don't even know what's going on with Thor really. There needs to
There's a
be
movie. There's a movie coming out.
no. I mean, as in we just don't know what's going on with his character, right? Like we don't know what the next movie will entail. Like obviously, Natalie Portman will be in it as female Thor, and Valkyrie's going to come back, and I'm assuming Korg will as well, and the usual sort of characters from Ragnarok. But I just mean that we don't know where that character is going. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
Um,
interesting. Yeah, because it's with the Guardians. I mean, I kind of like what they're doing with Thor. They've made him quite interesting.
yeah, but as I said, I just don't know what they're going for, and
Yeah, it's
I think
anyone's
people
guess.
just need to be a little bit more patient and kind of just take into account the fact that the big stuff is over. Now we got to start slow and start building up again.
Yeah, I mean, I do applaud Marvel for actually doing that because you think they're like, I mean, they obviously know after Endgame that people are going to be like wanting something huge, and it was kind of brave of them to be like, okay, here's some kind of calm stuff. The bigger stuff's coming.
Yeah,
And yeah, obviously it's going to be harder to get people on board, but I think they know they have a big enough, like, like intense fan
yeah,
base
I
that
was
are
gonna
going to
say,
watch
yeah,
everything, that they don't need to worry about that. And then obviously they're going to go, no, no, watch it's really good. And they'll convince the more like casual people to hop on it. And then they go, oh, you know what? Actually, that was pretty good. And then when the movie comes out, be like, oh, that part of the movie that was from this show. And they're like, oh, okay, I'll go back and watch it. And then everyone will catch up and it'll be like, you know what? This is actually a really good like era in Marvel. I reckon it'll be all right in the end.
yeah. I'm sure it'll all work out. And speaking of more Marvel, we also got a new Loki trailer that just recently dropped. And that to me was probably the most exciting trailer out of the bunch, besides Suicide Squad, which I really enjoyed. But no, Loki was again really surprising, and this is another one of those shows that, much like WandaVision, you don't really have much knowledge of. It looks really weird and really kooky, but I kind of love it, and anything that I have zero expectation going into and I have no idea what's happening is always going to excite me, because on a creative level, I love to be surprised. And this show seems like it's going to be right up my alley. I don't know about you.
I'm very excited for Loki. Actually, I have a pretty good eye for these kind of things. And from the first trailer, I'm like, this is gonna be their show. This is gonna be the best Marvel production of the year. I'm calling it now, because it's like the first trailer didn't show that much, but I'm like, there's something here. I just know it, and the fact that like you don't know what it's about, and it's kind of weird. And it's like, okay, and then this new trailer is just it's crazy, like how good this show looks.
Oh, it does look great.
So
Yeah.
like I'm very excited.
I'm actually
I love the
surprised.
whole time police thing. It looks great.
I'm actually surprised. I was going to say by Owen Wilson in the fact they even got him in the show to begin with, but the fact that he actually him and the chemistry he has with Tom Hiddleston just looks really fun, and it looks like they'll be going on like these buddy adventures or whatever through time. Um,
Yeah, I thought his role was almost going to be like a cameo or like a chief kind of thing, but yeah, he seems like he's in it quite a bit. And yeah, I was like, whoa, he can actually act. Okay.
no, it just looks fun, and obviously there's not a huge amount I feel like we can talk about with this show, because there's just so much that's still left up in the air. And like I said, this is exactly where Marvel needs to go now. It just needs to take some weird directions. Um, but no, I think it
Yeah,
looks
but even
great.
some of the stuff in the like trailers, I was expecting like when he uses the Bifrost, I'm like, okay, so what's that implying? Like, who knows what we're going to see and where they're going to travel to? Are we going to see scenes from the movies and he's like in the background? Like, I don't know. I'm very excited though.
Yeah,
A lot of
I
potential.
think we'll start to
Heaps of
see.
cameo potential, like huge.
Yeah, and I think we'll start to see multiple Lokis. Um,
Yeah, I'm thinking that too, and I'm thinking maybe he'll get like the memories of the other Loki somehow, because I assume this is the Loki they're keeping going forward, and they're gonna keep him in the MCU. I hope so. I like Loki, but it's like we have this. It's kind of weird because we have this Loki that we know, and he's kind of like becoming a good guy. I mean, he basically sacrificed his life to try and kill Thanos, and he doesn't let him kill Thor because he loves his brother,
Hmm.
and he's come such a long way. And now you have this Loki who's he's just after Avengers. He's evil Loki. Like there's no character development for this one yet, and so it'll be interesting to see what they do with him. Like because he's pretty much evil still.
Yeah, well, he's basically just the original. Like they haven't really done
Yeah,
anything different. And like I said, I think it's just got to do with the fact that we're going to see other Lokis, and I don't just mean Tom Hiddleston's. I think we're going to see different universe Lokis, like an older Loki or a female Loki or something like that. You know what I mean? I think that's what we're going to see, and that's when the show's just going to get really, really unusual.
right.
Right. Well, the last trailer on our list is unfortunately Space Jam: A New Legacy.
I forgot. Okay,
I don't really want to talk about it.
I actually forgot what the last one was. Okay, go on.
So I'm not a huge fanboy for the original Space Jam. I think we had it on VHS or something when I was a kid, and we just recorded it off the TV. And it was just a '90s movie, atypical '90s movie with a sports star, in this case Michael Jordan. And the movie was fun for what it was, but I was never a really big fan of Space Jam. I mean, the only thing I truly remember from the film, outside of Bill Murray appearing at the end of it, is I think Newman from Seinfeld is in it. And in terms of this new one, I literally saw the trailer and pretty much wanted to stab myself in the eyes because it just looked like the same sort of crap that gets shoveled out of Hollywood these days, which is, hey, let's make a kids movie that's a reboot or a sequel to an older movie that everybody loves, but we're just gonna thin it out and add all this random stuff in it. And for some reason, this movie also looks like Ready Player One, which is really confusing. Um, Again, I don't really have words.
It's not that confusing. I mean, geez, you really okay? You're really negative. Oh, I'm not a huge fan of the original one either. Like I watched it when I was a kid. I don't remember it that well. It was yeah. Again, I think it's an okay movie. Whatever. It's a kids film. Um. Yeah, I think they're going for like instead of just the Looney Tunes world, they have like every Warner Brothers
Yeah, well,
franchise.
that's obvious.
If it conceived, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna see like them play basketball too, because I mean, that kind of sounds funny if they do that, but I feel like they're not. They're just all gonna be in the background watching, which then it's like, what's the point?
Yeah,
Um, yeah, it depends what they do with it, whether like how fun it is, I guess. But yeah, I really hated how he like they're like in the elevator and they're like, oh shit, wrong floor, and then they go into the thing and he gets sucked into like a motherboard thing,
yeah,
and then I'm like, and then War Machine's there, and it's like, like God or something. Like,
yeah.
what the hell's going
To me,
on?
it was just like some cross between, as I said, Ready Player One and like Pixels or something like that. I was just watching it, going, "What is this? What's going on? Why?"
Yeah, I really hated the setup. I just thought that was really stupid. Okay, why are they doing it like this?
Yeah, because like the idea you mentioned of these different universes or worlds or different properties, really, that's fine. I mean, I can enjoy that, but then it's just like, oh, they get sucked into a computer system or the internet probably, and it's like, dude, how many films have done that in the last 10 years? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it's garbage.
It's just
It's so lazy.
it's been done to death, and that's why the movie just looked so rinse and repeat. And that's what
Yeah.
frustrated me. It was just like, here's more of the same, and I'm like, oh, for God's sakes. But what else do you expect? They got to make money somehow. Anyway, if we got,
Well, I'm sure they will. And again, kids aren't picky, so they're gonna love it, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But we can just critique the shit out of it.
if we want to, if we end up seeing it at all.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm probably not gonna pay to see
I'm
that.
not gonna pay to see that. No thanks. All right then. Well, I think that's everything for this week. I'd like to thank my co-host Nathan for joining me. We will let you guys know what's happening next time, but other than that, we will catch yous later. All right. Bye, guys.
Goodbye.